Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Muhammad Asim. I'm working as DevOps engineer. Guys, in this video, I'm going to show you how we can use application sets in ArgoCD, and we are going to deploy application through application sets, right, in ArgoCD in multiple environments in a single cluster, and also we are going to deploy same application in multiple environments in multiple clusters. How we can do that? I'm going to show you simple example, and I guarantee you after watching that particular example, you will be able to set up this powerful feature of application stats. So previously, guys, I've shown you in the video how to use apps of apps, but that approach is pretty much, you can say, a legacy approach, right? So this approach is modern, and application sets are very powerful. So regarding the setup of Argo CD adding multiple cluster, I've already created video. You can watch that particular video, right? And you can watch this video as well regarding how we can add the helm repos in Argo CDs and deploy those manually, right? But we are going to use the application sets and do automated deployments of our infrastructure, right? So let's begin. So if you navigate to my repository, this is the public repository. What I've done, I've added this directory here, application sets. So I'm going to start with example number two rather than example one. Why I'm doing that, you will easily understand that. So in this example number one, we are limited to deploy application on a single cluster. But if you're able to learn or understand what is mentioned in the example two, you will easily learn how to set up multiple application environment in a single cluster and multiple clusters, right? So these are the three files and very much basic files, right? So um, if you navigate to this file and let me open this, okay, that is fine. Let me open this in another tab, and I'm going to navigate back to this image tag, and I will back to this shortly, right? So in the project.yaml, so we are setting up our custom project. The name of the project is going to be ArgoCD example 2, right? Namespace is going to be ArgoCD. Finalizer mean if you deploy, I mean, if you destroy application from ArgoCD, it is going to destroy resources from your Kubernetes cluster as well. So you need to just make sure that if you want to comment this or uncomment this, is totally up to you. I mean, and this is the way usually the modern setups are done to make sure um, everything can be destroyed and can be created through GitOps approach. So that's why this feature is available, right? So this is, I'm calling this demo project. You can call this anyway, um, anything. So source repos, I'm adding star and namespace star. So server is going to be star, name star. So because we are going to use a variables and we are going to loop through variables in the other file. So I'm going to show you, right? So let's navigate to this. Okay, so navigate to this second one, right? Um, Here we are actually creating the secret for, but this is the public repo, right? So we don't need to have secret, but I added the links of the official documentation. For instance, if you're using private repos and you want to access those private repos through HTTPS, you can simply use this particular example. Official links is already available, and also added in the README MD, this link is available, right? So navigate to the last part, which is the application set, right? So simply what we are going to create here, the name of the application is who, namespace is ArgoCD, so it is going to be same, but the actual application namespace is going to be different according to their environments, right? So here is the spec list, I mean, generator list. So we have till now, I guess, in today's date, we have 8 types of generator list, cluster, and others. You can see the details from the official documentation, but we are using the simplest application. I mean, simple example here, but very powerful to deploy quickly all the infrastructure. in a quick way, right? So, for instance, we have dev environment, right? We, I mean, this is the variable which we are going to later use below in the template, right? So this is the variable, right? So I'm calling this dev here. Namespace is going to be foo dev, which is our application, right? So cluster is going to be dev cluster. So dev cluster here, I mean, I already shown you that in my past video, I've shown you how to add cluster. So I've already added two cluster in my, I mean, one is default and added one more additional cluster. So if you navigate to this cluster section, you will see the URLs of these clusters, right? So this one is the cluster, and in cluster is the default cluster, right? So, okay, and if I navigate to this section, I want foo dev to deploy on this particular cluster, not in this cluster. So I'm easily telling this. So URL is also variable, and we are going to loop through in the below template, right? So cluster, I'm going to, let's say I'm going to call this, I mean, dev cluster. So then, okay, then the next variable env staging, right? So this is the different environment. Namespace is going to be foo. Staging cluster is going to be in cluster. So if you navigate to this section, in cluster is this URL. So I want to deploy this application on the same default cluster, right? So it is totally depends on you. You can simply add the same URL here and here, so your application is going to be deployed on that same particular cluster. So this is the flexibility we are adding here, right? So where we want our application to deploy, right? And later on, I'm going to show you. So this is, understanding you will get. Okay, in the last we have prod environment namespace is going to be foo dash prod cluster. I'm giving this random name, but the URL is exactly the same as this one. So I want to deploy our prod application on this particular cluster. You can add multiple cluster and provide the URL. That is it, right? So if you navigate to the template section, you see name met foo dash env. So foo-env is a variable which is going to loop through these values, right? So, and resource finalizer, I've already told you what it is, right? So project name is this one, ArgoCD example 2, and repo URL. This is the repo URL. This is the same URL. We have a directory here with the name apps charts slash foo. If you navigate to this section, we have a directory apps charts and foo. In foo, we have Helm charts with these values. So dev values are different. I made it intentionally different, right? Prod values are different, staging values are different. Different in a way that, for instance, if you navigate to the dev values, so I've added different images, repositories, like this is the different repository, not Docker Hub, and this is the tag I'm going to use. This is public repo, GitLab public repo, right? So this is what we have in dev. In prod, we have, you see, QuickBooks 2018 slash green and latest. So this is the Docker Hub repo for prod, and in the last we have staging values.yml. So QuickBooks 2018 slash blue, different application. All three applications, I mean, the images are, I mean, different. So, okay, now we get back to this Helm chart. So this is our Helm application Helm chart, and we have three different environments, right? So okay, so it is going to navigate to this directory, look for this values.yml file, and it is going to loop through this env. So we have this env dev, we have dev dash values.yml. So we have dev dash values.yml, right? So we have this staging dash values.yml, staging dash values.yml, right? So we have env prod, we have prod dash values.yml. So it is going to loop through these values, and according to the environment, it is going to deploy. the application according to their cluster. So URL is also a variable. You see, regarding the URL in server, I've added URL. So URL is going to be, for instance, prod URL is going to be this one. Staging URL is going to be this one in cluster, right? I've added the URL, and dev cluster is going to be this remote cluster or whatever I added, right? So namespace is gonna be is also a variable. If you see, navigate to the namespace for dev, the namespace name is going to be foo dash dev, and for staging is going to be foo staging, right? And for prod is foo prod. So hopefully you get the understanding. Regarding the automation, I've added these values. For instance, sync policy automated true, prune true, self heal true, self heal true, and create namespace true, right? So it is going to create namespace if it is not there. So I've already done the testing. So let me do one thing, for instance, regarding the namespace. If I navigate to the namespace section, so what I'm going to do, okay, this is the application we have. So simply type foo here, right? And select all these and get rid of these namespaces. This is my cluster number one, right? And it is terminating. So I'm going to navigate back to this cluster number two, navigate to this namespace section, um, type foo here, and I'm going to get rid of these values. You see, foo dev prod are already set up in um, cluster number two. All right. So, but we have done all the changes. So let's try to deploy this application. Hopefully you get the understanding what we are actually currently doing. So I'm in the same directory, pwd, which is the example two, right? So regarding the example one, I've added less things. For instance, I've hard coded the values. So I will show you shortly once this has been done. So kubectl apply -f, and I'm going to apply the resources here. So it has actually set up the first number one file, number two file, and number three file. So right. So if you navigate to this section, you see foo dev is created, and foo dev is, I've already shown you that um, like dev and prod, we have this one. So that's why we have only two namespace created in second cluster, right? And we will see the pods in this particular cluster. So if you navigate to this section, food dev, you will, okay, first of all, see the application is deployed or not. So navigate to the application, and we need to see the application. You see food dev is set up, foo prod is set up, foo staging is set up. If you hover to this um, URL like destination, you see this is the foo dev destination, and if you see the destination of foo prod is this one, but if you see the foo staging destination is in cluster. So that is how we loop through our cluster. And if I navigate back to this section, you see now we have our pod has been spin up, right? And if I want to check the image of this foo dev, and let me show you this part. So you see, foo dev is the GitLab registry. Which I've already shown you guys, but definitely double check it. So what values we have provided here in the values.yml. So this is the 49 tag has been deployed, right? And now if I navigate to foo prod, click this guy, right? And if I scroll it down, the image is going to be, or it should be, QuickBooks 2018, which is Docker Hub Public Registry Green colon dot, green colon latest. So if I navigate back, you see prod values of YAML. This is what we have set up in our prod values. And similarly, you see this is deployed on that particular cluster, which is cluster two. So we need, for staging, we need to back to this cluster one and navigate to this section, right, and back to pods. Click this guy for staging, and you see this pod has spin up. and the image tag is going to be this is QuickBooks 2018, which is Docker Public Registry Blue latest. And in the last, we're going to see this staging. So we have this blue image. Hopefully you get the understanding, but the powerful thing is that you can have multiple environment setup of application on multiple cluster with a single apply, and that is how powerful application sets are, right? And in the last, I just want to show you the example. For instance, you can narrow down to a single cluster with by simply providing the URLs, which I've already shown you. But if you want to navigate to the first example, let me navigate to the example number one. So here, what we have done or I have done is if you navigate to the project. So this is going to be project number one. If we set up, so I've hard coded the value or only restricted the values of server to only a single cluster. But I do recommend to go for this star value, right? And that is pretty much it. And what it does, it is going to deploy the stuff on a single cluster, but you already have a flexibility to set up in example number two that we have added the cluster and cluster URLs. So simply here, if you provide this URL, it is going to deploy all the stuff in the same cluster. And if you want multiple cluster deployment with multiple environments, you can do that in a single file, and you can loop through these variables, and you can have might be like five, six environments or multiple cluster or single cluster. You can do that. That is it, guys. If you like the video, please like, share, and subscribe the channel. Have a nice day. Thank you very much.